The reason a podcast is valuable is the trust building element to it. I don't think any other format builds trust in the same way that a podcast does.
Sometimes done is better than perfect if it's a barrier.
Talking to people about their own personal relationship with money.
How do you break that down?
You will know this better than anyone. You need a hook to get people in.
It's not glamorified. It's not you put out a video, it got 1 million hits, and then you get 20 phone calls. Right?
Absolutely not. No one's calling me at this stage. Definitely not. The super niche stuff is a super niche audience.
What content can you create on a consistent schedule? So now I'm like, how can I best spend today? And how can I be as efficient as I can? Hello, my friends. I hope you're well. I hope you had a good day, evening, or night. Today we're talking to John all about podcasting. Hi, John.
Hello. Yeah, good. Thanks. Yourself?
Yes, super well. We were fortunate enough to meet through James, whose space we're in today.
Studio man.
And I was debating about how to start this because I think sometimes like podcasting can be a really challenging thing, right? And I think for me, why should someone actually have a show like this as a whole? But then because I think there's a psychology kind of hurdle in the respect of creating content, but especially in a podcast environment. But also then like, what is the ROI, I guess?
Yeah.
Would you say?
I think it's the format dictates that more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So the reason a podcast is valuable is the trust building element to it. I don't think any other format builds trust in the same way that a podcast does. For a couple of reasons. First of all, you are sort of having a long form chat. So you can go into subjects way deeper than you can in other stuff. Sometimes even videos and documentaries and stuff. If you're watching a documentary, there's kind of like a point at which you need it to move on. With a podcast, you could sort of effectively ask questions forever. And if it's good content, it keeps going.
Do you think it's the first or easiest step into content creation, would you say?
I think audio only, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because of the barrier that is video in terms of skills and everything. And you've got to think about camera setups and everything like that. Whereas if you do audio only, so easy to get a mic, so easy to talk to someone online, virtual on a video call. Mm-hmm. That's so accessible that actually, it's quite an easy first step into it, I'd say.
Do you think you're limiting like yourself though? Because I don't know whether I question audio only, unless obviously you're on the platform. But when you're looking at maybe social posts like LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, is there an audience, would you say, for audio only still?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think the thing in terms of marketing, like you say, and promoting the show, without video nowadays, it's hard to get it out there, definitely. But a lot of people, myself included, view the podcasting format as something you listen to while you're doing other stuff, while you're hoovering, while you're driving, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's definitely still there, and I don't think that's going away.
Would you say then it's more of a step by step? So someone could start audio and then where's step 2?
I think so. Yeah, I think so because, depending on who you are, if you're a business, it's a bit different. If you're an individual, you kind of learn the time required to sort of get to each step. So once you start on the audio step and you're like, actually, it's taking me too much time, it's not worth it for whatever reason, it's not for you. If you then introduce video purely for clips, so you film the whole thing but only use clips, then you can see what time the promo takes, and then when you should go to a full video, you can see how long that takes. So I think that's why you'd do it potentially in that step if you're coming at it from a completely new perspective, if that makes sense.
And then, I guess you then can grow to the Diary of a CEO style, full form trailer-esque piece, right? And I think sometimes we get so, and this is true for any marketing, not necessarily a podcast, but it could also be true of a podcast. I think we get so hemmed in I need it to be Diary of a CEO quality instantly, right? Yeah. And I think that we struggle with the idea of I'm going to take one step, make a 1% improvement, next step, 1% improvement, one step, so on, right? And I think for me, especially with what I've done with marketing, it's always been so this is the results I've got previously from this output. Okay, but what happens if I double the output, right? And it's constantly that testing period. I mean, in your experience with podcasting, how do how would you recommend people, or how would you look at like working with a client, because I know that's some of the work you do, to actually help them actually work out, should they have a podcast, but then secondly, like, what are the nuts and bolts of their podcast in regards to topics and like theme and etc. And or does that matter now?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the sort of nuts and bolts, you kind of have to have the reason why you're doing it first, then you go into the nuts and bolts. So like I said at the start, the reason why is the building trust element. I think you need, if that's what you want to achieve, and you have, say you're selling a particular service or a product that can be gone into in depth, then it's worth doing from the start. Then the nuts and bolts from there all depends on how you want to package that, I guess, to be unique or to kind of be the same, because everyone is kind of getting used to this kind of format. So there's options on the table for sure.
I think there's obviously that psychology thing that we've talked about a little bit as well, but I think for me, I didn't overthink it. I was like, I enjoy talking about business, I enjoy talking about content creation, I enjoy talking about marketing. And yeah, I've evolved it, and yeah, it sort of changed, and depending on like the guest will kind of tailor the conversation slightly. But I also don't overthink the conversation, because I trust in myself as an interviewer to ask, I guess, poignant questions, or like what naturally comes to my mind. And I think sometimes when we look at content, it's not in this box, right? I watched a video this morning talking about the fact that like one of the reasons why they're not, the person in question wasn't on YouTube, was because he was constantly concerned about, he sells video production, so it has to look good, has to sound good, and I followed the logic of yes, sure, but actually sometimes done is better than perfect if it's a barrier. Do you, like, how do you, when you look at either, and I'm sure we'll get onto the podcast you're launching, but like when you work with clients, or when you're maybe looking at your own podcast, like, how do you balance that line of, okay, it's done, but actually there's these things that that could be better? Do you hold a podcast back? Would you reshoot a podcast? Like, where's your line?
Yeah, I think you'd want to know that before even starting, frankly. If you want it to be polished, and the client's a big company, for example, you want it to be polished, you start from there. That's kind of, the level is set effectively. And going on from there, in terms of, you know, if it looks scrappy, there's kind of growing evidence that a scrappier look still appeals on the right platform. I was reading recently about TikTok, and how people, or watchers or users of TikTok, prefer the raw content, the raw sort of footage and stuff. So someone literally picking up their phone and talking, there's no kind of green screen, no one's putting any effects or whatever. If the content looks like that on TikTok, it sells on TikTok. Yeah. Whereas on YouTube, like you were saying, people kind of expect a bit more of a polished thing. But I think authenticity is quite a big thing these days when it comes to content. And like you were saying with your questions and it's coming off the dome and stuff, that's in some ways kind of seen as a more better or nicer to watch compared with a completely polished, you know, you've gone through 20 questions with a fine-tooth comb and you're only asking 10 because they're like the best ones only. It doesn't, like, conversations don't work like that, and that's ultimately what podcasts are.
I think that's an important point. I think that there is obviously a line when it comes to like the quality of, like, especially if it's what you sell, like what I sell is video production, so there is a line. But I also think that there's an opportunity cost of refilming a conversation that isn't the first one, for example. Absolutely. Right? So to give you some context, last week or so, I filmed a podcast with my mum, and that post, me announcing the fact I did it, did really well, which kind of doesn't surprise me to an extent. It doesn't, but there's actually a tech like challenge with that podcast because one of the cameras isn't in focus. So my camera isn't in focus. So I was in a position last week, and I think I pretty much made the decision I'm just going to work around it. But I'm in a position where I'm like, the episode is really strong in regards to the content, but it's not perfect video production wise. Do I reshoot it with the potential opportunity that it will feel different and the conversation will maybe come across differently? Or do I work around the fact I've got multiple cameras and I fix it that way? Or do I just go with, okay, it's out of focus. It's not far out of focus. It's maybe an inch, like a tiny amount. But is that an approach some people should take? Do you think they should get like out of the way of the content sometimes? Because I could really sit here and like lose my shit over the fact that one angle's out of focus, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think the content is what matters most. I think if you tried to reshoot it, it's never getting anywhere near the same, especially if it was a good episode.
Yeah.
And it's your mum, right? So it's personal to you, and it's like an emotional element to it.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean. You're coming at it kind of from like an editor's perspective, and it's just going to annoy you forever. But the average watcher probably won't bother them that much, I'd say. So actually, if the content's really good, I guess like you say, you could in theory refilm your bits of like, you could pretend you're there again.
Yeah.
But unless you're a particularly good actor, it's it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So I would say no. I'd say take the hit on the
because also, but I also look at it from a perspective, from my point of view at least, by saying, okay, well, in the grand scheme of all the episodes I've got in production, that's one episode out of 20, right? Like this week, I think I'm filming like 9 or 10, right? Total. And I think for me, it's like the action will always outweigh that, and maybe that one with my mum isn't perfect from a production point of view, but the conversation, the content's really powerful.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing people need to focus on. I think that's when, especially when they start, I think they get in the way. Like they get in their way sometimes, and they're constantly like, it needs to be £40,000 of production. It needs to be this, and I only use 45 because Stephen Bartlett's known for like what he did with Diary of a CEO and like how he then scaled that to the point he did. But I think we don't look at the journey sometimes that Stephen went on specifically. If we're going to use him as an example, anyone with a big podcast, we don't look at the micro testing that happened through the journey to then get to the point where they're at today. I mean, have you confirmed like where you are with the podcast? Like, where's your podcast?
So yeah, yet to officially launch, but all the stuff's going on in the background basically at this point. I've got first bunch of guests booked, I've got the studio booked, and in terms of the background work, in terms of questions and what I'm thinking of masking and how I want it to look, that's all sort of down in my head. Yeah. So it's I've got to start it now. I've got the dates booked in, so it's just a case of starting when it starts. Happy days.
That's super exciting. I mean, for people who may be interested, I mean, how did you come up with the idea? What is the idea? Like, what are you going to be talking about? Like, where's that? And I think it's really important to also highlight, and something I try to do is like collaborate with other people rather than, because some maybe will be watching this and go, but Colin, that could be like, technically you're a competitor in some ways, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, actually, because I think we can both work together to actually create a better show as a whole, right? And lean into each other's skills where it makes sense. But I mean, just to reiterate the question, I mean, where, what, and how is your podcast going to be about?
Yeah, so it's called How Do You Money? And that's the idea. That's the sort of opening question somewhat. So it doesn't actually make grammatical sense, obviously. But I think most people can get from that. It's talking to people about their own personal relationship with money. Strictly not an advice show, because I'm not an expert with money. And it's purely human interest. So I'm going to talk to people about their money habits. Things like how often do they check their banking app? Mm-hmm. When you ask people these questions in day-to-day conversation, it's amazing how different the answers are. How people in relationships deal with money between them. Everyone does it differently. And so like the crux is that twofold. First of all, in the UK, we're just not taught what to do with money in school. College, university, whatever.
Do you think we should?
Yes, absolutely.
That should be in school?
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's a fundamental life skill. As you know, we had a short conversation about money at the start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think it definitely should be. But at the moment it's not, right? And so I think as a result, two things happen. Number one, everyone makes up their own way. Second of all, people are too scared to talk about it because there's no official guidelines.
Do you think
from the start?
Do you think that's an insecurity? Do you think if I say that I nearly lost the business in 2024 or previously, that you're going to judge me? Do you think it comes from that?
Absolutely, yeah. Do
you think that I'm going to think that you think I'm a failure?
I think that's a big part of it, definitely.
And then let's flip it. Do you?
Absolutely not. No. And I don't think anyone would, because, well, the main thing being everyone else will have their own story along the same guidelines, because we're not taught about what to do, because life is a challenge anyway with money, because there are so many ways you can trip up with money. So it's very much the sort of low budget psychoanalysis of money, and it's kind of an accumulative thing. So no, it's not about the one episode or one particular episode or what one person says. My idea about it is looking back at the first 10 episodes and seeing all the different answers. I've got a killer question that I ask at the start of this podcast that everyone will definitely have a different answer. It's a one-word question.
Okay.
One-word answer. And I hope that kind of sets the tone for how the rest of it is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, looking at your planning stage then for your show, I'm curious, because obviously I plan mine in the way I do it. How have you looked to plan it? Do you completely pre-plan it? Do you have an idea of questions in your head? Obviously, you've already said you have the opening question there. I mean, what do you have the rest of it? Like, just break most of the audience's case, but also I'm curious as well. I mean, like, how do you break that down? Like, how have you broken that down?
So I have kind of set it into 3 or 4 kind of different sets of questions that relate to specific things. So, like, I'll have 4 main topics, let's say, and then questions that come underneath that. One of my sections is clickbait questions.
Okay, fair enough.
Just being really honest about it.
But are you doing that for the clip that you're going to extract from the show?
So partly to do with that, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. You will know this better than anyone. You need a hook to get people in. Yeah. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
But as well as that, those questions often come up with the best answers. There's a reason they're clickbait questions, because they're the big questions. But it can't just be all of that, because it's like me going to you, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made with money? What's the best thing you've ever done with money? What's the worst problem you've ever got? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. That's not a podcast. It doesn't work as a format in any interview or anything. So that's one section, for example. But in terms of the process, I just thought of the questions based on normal conversations with people. And then I've sort of categorized them, chopped a few out.
Yeah. The
clickbait thing was only a recent idea, really, so I've added some of those in. And yeah, in terms of a format, it's conversational, right? So I don't have to hit every question. If I ask the second question and that lasts a good chunk of the podcast, so be it. It's quite loose, because I want the content to be real.
I think that's important, right? Because I think sometimes, and we were talking a little bit while I was setting up, about why people don't post, or why people don't show up, or why they don't talk about their money, or there's loads of the kind of, from a psychology point of view, or like coming across point of view, it's the same. And I think that for me, I've been very fortunate that I've always sort of taught publicly or built in public, and it was interesting because about a month or 2 ago, I think, I personally, so I don't know when the trend started, but the trend of building in public really started taking momentum. I mean, have you, because I know we in our one-to-one, we talked about the fact that you were 6 months-ish into freelance. I mean, how was your journey from okay, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to go freelance? I mean, was it forced on you? Was it
50%?
Okay. Yeah.
I took voluntary redundancy basically from my previous job. But to be honest, I'd come to a point where I felt like I wasn't going anywhere in that job, if that makes sense. And yeah, it was a bold decision, because I was also 3 months away from my first child being born. So I've since had a conversation with a friend who was like, "You're mad. Why have you gone and done this at this exact time?" But yeah, a lot of things felt right about it. I did seek advice about it from people about rates and how much work is available, just a few people that I knew. And it just seemed like the way to go, and it has been the way to go up until this point. So it's a bit like that freelance, and you'll know, as a business owner, you're just sort of going, okay, I've got through this month, go to the next one.
I was definitely like that at the start, right? I've been very fortunate. I've talked quite openly about the fact that 2024 was quite rough, but I blame myself on why it was quite rough.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't showing up as it's in the correct marketing to actually get the output I wanted, but also in volume, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then if now I look in hindsight about what I was doing and what went wrong, quote unquote, And I could sit in the respect of maybe a victimized mentality of saying, well, the economy was hard and there was this issue and then etc. But like as we were discussing before, I think you're an example of this at 6 months in, but I'm maybe an example of this year. You have to have a strong business model. Something that I've tweaked in the business model now is a more recurring revenue model. So we'll work with people on a monthly returning like payment plan.
Nice.
Or like and it's not like that's not the only thing I do, but I still do project work. But like for me, it was always a matter of, from looking at a business point of view, of how do I squish those troughs, right, and also squish those peaks in proxy to an extent. But it's basically having a flat line. I know categorically I'm going to have X amount coming in, and then how do I design a business that allows me to do that? But then also, what marketing does that business need to then show to other clients that I know I'm talking about? And I think when we look at actions, and this was going to be on to the next question, which was around like, is it just the reason why you're busy is because of your output? Because I think sometimes we sit here and go, oh, things are quiet, or like, you know, we both kind of alluded to it already, but business owning, freelancing is difficult, right? And I've had times where it's really, really hard, where I know I've got to hit a certain amount every month, and I'm like, I don't fucking know where that money's coming from. But how do you look at it when you were looking at either going full time or like now in respect to like keeping your pipeline full? If you don't, because I'm in a quite privileged position where I've got that residual revenue, so actually I don't need to worry too much at the moment as it sits right now, because I've got that residual revenue. Of course, I'm still pushing, I'm still looking for projects, etc. But I don't need to worry in the same way as if I didn't have that income.
Yeah.
So for people who are maybe in the position closer to that, where they're just project to project, and maybe they don't have a pot of money and they don't have like money management, how do you look at it? How do you create a strong pipeline, I guess, is the question.
There's a magic wand called LinkedIn these days. And it basically, I've just utilised that. So you can find companies that do what you do, or companies that you want to work for in a freelance capacity. Then there's a tab that says people, and you can directly speak to the people at these businesses that you want to work at. That's all I've done. And the first 6 months, I'm thinking about 10 months in now, but the first 6 months for me, 100% of the work I got was through LinkedIn. Okay. So.
And was that through what I would call in the trenches, hand-to-hand DMing? Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's a strategy, I call it, it's like cold DMing, cold outreach, cold warming. It's not glamorified. It's not you put out a video, it got 1 million hits, and then you get 20 phone calls. Right?
Absolutely not. No one's calling me at this stage. Definitely not. But yeah, it kind of just through messaging people. Sometimes people I knew, and that led to work. Often most of the time, people I didn't know, and that led to work. And you know, it's you often hear in sort of success stories. It's like a lucky break or a sort of lucky thing. And I kind of did have that with my first job. But it was because I made that approach and I said, oh, hi, you do these kind of podcasts. I've done these for this number of years. I'd love to do more. At that time, they happened to need someone because they wanted to do something new. Yeah. And I got the work because of that. And it's one of those things, isn't it? I think the quote is, luck is where time and preparation
meets opportunity.
That's it. Preparation meets opportunity is luck.
That's all luck is.
Yeah.
You're prepared for an opportunity to come, and then you continue to keep yourself prepared and keep yourself ready. Like we're recording this just before, about a week and a half before the kids break up for school, right? A lot of people in business look at that as, oh Christ, everything's going to go quiet. Everyone, which understandably, they're going to spend time with their children, they're going to go on holiday, etc. I read a post the other day, there was something on the lines of, things are quiet, right? Things like the creative industry is struggling, got these kind of terms. And I was like, okay, that might be true. And it might be actually we're coming into the summer holidays, etc. But that's then an opportunity for you to A, output your marketing, B, look at maybe cold outreach or what you're doing there, and then try and set some stuff up for September. I mean, do you see, like, because I remember when I was just project, especially when I was like tighter on cash flow, it would be this rush to get money in because I knew I would have 6 weeks where things would be a lot harder. Are you either financially planning wise or pipeline wise or etc.? Are you planning for that to be slower, or do you expect actually there's going to be a percentage of businesses that actually just keep going and work around everything.
Yeah, I just feel like at this stage, I don't think I can really plan for it, if that makes sense. The planning is outreach.
Yeah.
Just message people, talk to people I know, people I've worked for before, people I don't know, people I want to work for, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm not at that stage yet where I could do that, but there are opportunities sort of on the horizon where I may be able to do that. So it's one of those, really. I don't know exactly how that planning would look like for me right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, and this is kind of like a bolt-on question to marketing or networking and how you tackle those things. For a long time, people have always looked at maybe traditional marketers as, I'm going to go to an event, I'm going to network in the room, and I'm trying to get work from that room. What I've always understood is it's networking through that room, right? But nowadays, because of time and because of what I do less of the in the room having a conversation stuff, but I'm still leveraging either the network that I have and then their connections that they're making potentially, or you as an example, or I'm actually just trying to utilize the network I already have to then lean into either creating more content or creating opportunities to have conversations in one-to-ones with very targeted people. And I think sometimes, especially at the beginning, and I look at it as phases in business, right? So I'll use you as an example. The phase you're in freelancing as a whole is you've got to do a lot of hand-to-hand, you've got to do a lot of time investment, you've got to do a lot of network events, you've got to, like, I think the term would be like kiss a lot of frogs before you get your prince or princess, right? And I think for me, it's then about like maybe looking at scaling. You may not have thought about this yet, but like how would you then look at, say, you're 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, and actually you've got, like, not that you don't have a reputation now, but you've got more of an established reputation. How would you then like say to a person or a client or a friend that maybe was looking to scale, because the issue is when you're trading time like that, it's not as scalable, right? You can scale the unscalable by just working really hard and working smart, sure. But would you look to do content? Like how would you look at it from your perspective, and or what are you planning to do?
In terms of content, how do you mean in terms of content?
In respect to like, would you continue to network and would you continue to lean into your own podcast and see that, because I expect what will end up happening, of course we don't know, it hasn't launched yet, but I expect what will end up happening is you'll get inquiries solely because you have a podcast, right?
That's kind of, yeah, and that's part of the strategy, frankly. Yeah. You know, an ultimate goal for the podcast would be sponsorship eventually, right? Mm-hmm. Very hard to get, notoriously, very long time to get there. So I'm not particularly holding my hopes up for that at this point, but that's kind of my best bet in terms of something like you say that isn't just working and getting paid for the work, if you know what I mean. Yeah. You are getting paid to do the podcast, but it's not directly, I do this hour, I get this pay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned sponsorship because I think it's something which people really struggle with. Do you think, because normally it's audience size based, right?
Yeah.
But I would actually say it's value, to an extent it's audience size, but also it depends on who you're asking to sponsor it. Okay. Yeah. If you're trying to get Coca-Cola to sponsor it, you probably should be pulling like a couple of million, right? If you're not trying to go for Coca-Cola, you can probably do it on a lesser scale. I mean, at what point would you, from your experience, would you say that even entertaining the idea of a sponsorship is a good idea?
From a business's perspective?
Yeah, from from the sponsor coming into looking for shows, and or if you have a show, at what stage should you then be like, hey, we've got sponsorship opportunities?
I see, okay. Well, from the sponsor's perspective, there's a lot more talk these days about the power of niche podcasts, basically. Mine isn't very niche, so maybe I've missed the mark there and I have to relook at it. But the super niche stuff is a super niche audience, and super niche stuff brings a super dedicated audience in a lot of cases. Because if you love barefoot shoes, I'm particularly interested in them, you're looking about barefoot shoe stuff all the time. People look about, how to strengthen your feet, what to do with toe spaces. You can go into mad detail and mad depth. And if you're a barefoot shoe brand and there's a podcast with 1,000 dedicated fans, you can put yourself in front of 1,000 dedicated fans. It doesn't sound like huge fry, compared to small fry, but it's dedicated people that if they like your brand will keep coming back. So it's kind of like a repeat customer concept. And also it's super niche. So if you're a barefoot brand and you go on the biggest podcast that's out there, you'll get lost among the noise of, the big brands like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's for a business, you want to look at the niche communities that you want to target. And then once you're in there, you're in there.
As a show then?
As a show, I think you have to know what you are able to do with the show. If you're committed to it week in, week out, because I think sort of weekly is what you need to be doing really for it to be worth sponsoring, maybe bi-weekly. Yeah, you could go for it from day one. I could be chasing it now, but I haven't got anything to show. I can't say, here's the podcast. I can say, here's the idea.
Yeah.
I think if you have something that it looks good and sounds good and the content is good and a community are reacting to it or people are reacting to it or you're getting good amount of, if there's a value proposition in there, you're ready to sort of offer it up as long as you're committed to keep it going. Because then otherwise there isn't a sponsorable thing, right?
Yeah. Do you think, I'm glad you mentioned like rhythm as what I call rhythm of shows. Do you think that you kind of alluded to it, maybe weekly or bi-weekly, like, because I know there's some people who maybe listen who are like, I can only do once a month.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say that would stop them doing a show, or do they need to organise filming in such a way or producing in such a way where when they launch, they've actually got enough to do weekly, for example?
Yeah, I think it kind of probably depends on the content, what the podcast is about. There's a lot of complicated algorithm stuff with YouTube and stuff. You definitely know more than me about that. But that kind of dictates that you need things to be weekly or you get lost. That's what I've sort of read.
I think the buzzword we could use here would be you have to be consistent, right? You have to commit to what you're saying. For me, I do weekly because it can work. And how I do that behind the curtain-esque is I just film a shit ton.
Yeah.
So then I've constantly got content, right? So for me, I've kind of got content buckets. Like, so I'll have stuff that's just me involved. For that, I'm about 6 weeks ahead of schedule in respect to like what I'm editing, in respect to what I'm filming. And then from a podcast point of view, as I alluded to earlier, I'm filming 7 episodes this week. But 7 episodes won't go live this week.
No,
right?
Of course not.
In the first week, when I relaunched the show, 7 episodes, like close to 7 episodes did go live, but that was a deliberate marketing plan that was, we're going to push the podcast really hard. Now, I'm doing clip generation through AI. I'm doing clip generation with me, and it's a yes and strategy rather than a yes or strategy. Because I think so many people, they look at, we could use ops clips, we could use an editor, we could use this, and they don't say, what if we do and, right? How do you look at it from a post-production point of view? Should someone, when they want to start doing a podcast, I guess it's audience-based, and it's the person, right? Whether they've got resources to throw at it, etc. But should someone who's starting a podcast, maybe a corporate or a medium-sized business, and they want to do a podcast, should they get into the trenches first and start? Or should they just pay someone like us to come in and help them with it from day one, would you say?
Yeah, I think if you're taking it seriously, you need a producer of some kind, an editor of some kind, realistically. To do that exact strategy, as you mentioned, have X amount ready to go.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of mitigates against all kind of problems coming up. The studio isn't ready, available.
Studio isn't available. Someone doesn't show up.
Someone's sick. Yeah.
You like, for me, there's client delivery weeks where I cannot fit it in. Physically, there's no gap in my calendar. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. But then I also have the week after, the 2 weeks after, where I'm like, this is podcast filming week.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a month where I don't have that, but because I've got a load of bank, and that's why I constantly try and bank as much content as I can when I can film it, that I can then be in a position where actually it's fine, right? So if I do fortunately get really busy with work, which is a nice problem to have, I guess, right? Which is actually the reality I'm now in, because I have an abundance of content, an abundance of, I guess in some ways it's a mindset thing around like, I don't need the work. So to an extent, actually the work's more there because I'm showing up differently, I think. But I think for me, like, especially as I'm doing a clip strategy as well as the YouTube, like the YouTube is a focus, sure. But for me, and just quickly as we're talking algorithms very quickly, the way YouTube's algorithm currently works, basically, in a nutshell, is you'll be served a piece of content that you like when you open the platform. So it will pull, not push, it will pull the content for you. And what will happen is when a piece of content goes live, so I put a new podcast out, I put ours out, etc., it will send it to a specific audience sector. Okay. And then it will say, okay, cool, this audience sector watched X amount, Y amount, it got number of views, etc. If that is, and the threshold changes, right, and it's the unknown bit of the algorithm, but if it hits above a certain threshold, it will then be served to a similar sized new audience. Then it will check the threshold again and repeat. So when something goes, quote, viral, what's happening is the watch time, the likes, the views, whatever it is, whatever metric they're waiting on at the time, is basically scaling repeatedly into new audiences, and the reaction from every new audience is great. So it's greater than the next one. So it then serves it to a larger audience and so on. That's how it gains momentum. But even virality videos will lose momentum eventually.
Yeah.
Just because it will be oversaturated to the market. It will go into a different part of the audience, etc., etc. TikTok's known for this. And then people will start clicking off or not watching it, and then you'll just watch it sort of drop off.
Right.
You know? But then there's also the reason why like YouTube's so powerful. You can have a video that's been it's got 5 views. 6 months, 12 months time, for whatever reason, triggered by the algorithm, 1,000 views. Right? I've watched it happen. I'm sure you have as well. And I think for me, it's not necessarily about looking at what the algorithm is rewarding or isn't rewarding. It's more about what content can you create on a consistent schedule that you're passionate about, that you can speak from, that puts you in a position to put your best foot forward. When you look at working with people, are you quite picky and choosy? Or are you in a fortunate position where you can be picky and choosy when you work with people on their podcasts?
In terms of clients?
In terms of clients, in terms of people you collaborate with, in terms of people you work with. Because I'm always curious whether it's just the nature of the beast in some ways. Like as I said, I sort of explained the makeup of my business this year. I'm now in a position where I'm very protective of my time. And that's not like I don't want to talk to you. It's just I only have a certain amount of time, and that's the only barrier. And that's my hurdle now. Because actually I'm okay on cash flow pretty much all the time because of my retainers. I'm okay because of project delivery. I've got a strong pipeline, and I'm good on content because I've got a large pile. So now I'm like, how can I best spend today? And how can I be as efficient as I can, in that respect? So is that, I guess the question, I'll re-ask it, but like, is it something you personally do? And if so, or if it isn't, is it something that you think you'll adapt to as your business scales and grows in that respect?
Yeah, I think it's a stage thing. So at this stage, I'm picking up what I can, where I can, effectively. If there's something I particularly don't want to do, I'm not going to do it.
I was just saying, is there still a line?
There's still a line, I think. Yeah. There's a line in terms of the day rate, frankly. If that's not up to scratch, there's a line in terms of what the actual work is. Sometimes.
Do you think people struggle with? So I've said no to certain clients just on like, not necessarily political ideology, but their approach, how they come across, whether they respect my time, things like that. And I think people, they sometimes worry, what if I say no? What if there's, like, do you think that's it comes from I'm aware that I'm overusing the word insecurity, but I can't think of another way to describe it. Is it an insecurity of like, there isn't going to be more work down the road for me?
Yeah, well, it's the biggest insecurity, isn't it? Because money is security these days, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think in terms of people saying yes to literally everything. Yeah, I think you're picky and choosy when you can be, probably, frankly. If you go, the last couple of months are fine, I could do nothing for the next 2 months and be fine. Then you are very picky and choosy. Yeah. When you've had a barren 2 months, you're more likely to be like, I'll just take it.
I also think it's a perspective of obviously synergize with the client. Can you add value? But also, like, even when you have an abundance of money or you're in a strong position with money, it might also be actually my goal is to hit this amount, right? And this project might not be ideal, but it pushes me closer to that goal so I can hit it sooner as well. And I think I'm in two minds about it. Because I'm a big advocate for you should say no, but also I'm a big advocate to get off your ego, get off your high horse. You still need to be in the trenches. Just because things are good right now, they're only good because you make them good for 6 months' time, etc. Right? And that's why I'm focusing on content. That's why I'm focusing on how I show up. That's why I'm focusing on constantly personally developing me so that actually in 6 months' time, things can be even better than they are, rather than, I had a really good 25 for the first half, Do you think people sometimes just want the instant, though? As a question, like, because we're very social media orientated in that respect. Do you think it's purely around short-term validation, short-term money, short-term deal, short-term this?
I guess, yeah, to an extent. I mean, it's if you're in a situation where I need money now, everything else will go out the window for some people, depending on your circumstances. This is the crux of it, is it depends on your circumstances. If you're comfortable for a while, then you'll be fine. Otherwise, probably you will just snap up the short-term things. But I think, in terms of what you're saying, I think...
Of course it's nuanced, right? Because it's like, if my back's against the wall, then I need to go and do what I call hand-to-hand outreach, right? Which is I need to come up with an offer and I need to go to my network and I need to sell it and I need to sell it quick.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm not in that position, I can then take my foot off that. I can step back and I can say, okay, actually, let's play the mid to long game now.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do in my content all the time. It's not direct sales. It's not this. It's actually, hey, have you thought about doing this? Hey, da-da-da. But as a society, as like starting creators, as freelancers, as video people, whatever you want to call it, have you noticed that people are more, they want short term? And they don't really have, I guess, the patience to look at where you're going to be in a year?
Yeah. I think that's a reality. I mean, I would have been quite sort of downbeaten if I'd had a different first 6 months to it. You kind of have to go through the journey to understand what the journey is.
Yeah.
Right. So with clients, with people approaching you, and you will have experienced this as well. You have 100 people you message.
Yep.
30 reply.
Yep.
10 say I'll have a call with you. 1 person gives you work. And if you think of it, if you go into it with that mindset, you'll live by that mindset, right?
Yeah.
So you'll keep doing it and you'll keep getting work because you've played the numbers game effectively. You've hit as many people as you can. Eventually something's going to come up.
You've done the rap, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about speed of delivery, speed of output, speed of execution. Do you think that's maybe a nature of why someone's more successful than someone who's, I'll do that tomorrow? From a mindset point of view, do you think? So I'll give you an example. Like for me, when I came up with the idea to relaunch the podcast in the format that it was, so on location, in person and or remote. And then within a week, I had filmed 3 episodes of the idea. Within 4 or 5 days, the first one was out. Because I didn't let myself get into that will be on the to-do list for next year. That will be on to-do list for next summer. That will be on the to-do list for 3 months' time. Because I knew I'm only going to get the results. I'm only going to start getting the data if I start outputting.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's becoming actually a core part of the marketing strategy for the next 6 months to a year. But that's because I've gained a load of momentum with it. And I know I'm really starting to get into a nice groove with it. And that's why I asked the speed thing, because one of the unique selling propositions I have personally as an editor is, so I'll give you an example. At the time of filming, I did a media day for a new client on Monday. And today we're filming on Monday. He's already got half the content already. And it's a week, right? But also, it wasn't like that was the only thing I was doing. I've also put out, I think, nearly 40 pieces of content for me, etc. I've done a load of other stuff related to the business. So for me, one of my unique selling propositions, or one of the things I do, is I work really smart and really hard consistently with no result, plan no result. But for me, from what clients have told me, one of the reasons why they continue to work with me is the speed.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things that comes up in conversation all the time, and James mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when I came to do 2 more podcasts, he was like, your speed's ridiculous. And it's because I've built a strong system to be able to work smart, but also just work really hard. And that's where I kind of come from that point of view. I know it's really important, but I know I'm willing to put the graft in and continue to put the graft in for 10 more years or more, if that's what it takes. But do you think that's uncommon in entrepreneurs as a whole?
I guess potentially, yeah. I mean, you kind of touched on it.
Because there's a level of complacency.
There's the work smart, not hard mantra, isn't there? But like you say, if you do both, kind of double the results effectively.
I'm going to outperform someone who's just working hard, sure, because I'm working smart and then doing the hours on the smart work as well.
Yeah,
right?
That's it. Yeah. So I think it probably is in terms of that. I mean, the get up and go thing. If you follow Gary V on social media, then you'll get the get up and go thing, because that was very much me. This podcast idea I'm doing was, I think I first thought of it 2 years ago. Okay. I've been writing notes about it on my phone. like month after month, something pop into my head. I'll be like, oh, that'd be cool. And then,
but do you think we have a culture of we're going to write notes about it?
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than execute on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because
it's you have to. I think you have to go through that journey.
You know, I'll be better at fitness next year. My diet will be better next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just need to go.
Or next month or tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's okay. We can. We've had a really long week. We can chill.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's true. It is. It's and we've got that comfort, and it's the whole being in a comfortable position. You don't grow in comfort. You have to be in discomfort. But actually, saying yes to things, you've got your yes and kind of mantra.
Yeah.
So just saying yes to things opens up. You realise, oh yeah, I can do this. Like if you just go, I'm just going to do it, and actually plan it. Like whether that's setting a reminder, put it in the calendar, write down, you know, on your fridge. This is what you need to do today. Whatever, however you do it.
Something I just building off that briefly. Something I found really valuable the last couple of years was if it takes me less than 2 minutes to do, I just do it. I don't set a reminder to do it. I don't I'm gonna write a to-do list or this or this or this. Like I need to send an email. Send the email rather than write a reminder about sending the email because the action will probably take less time.
Yeah, 100%.
And then it's done. Then you don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
If it's a longer thing, I need to ask ChatGPT about that. I need to do some research on that. I need to plan the podcast, and it's like a longer goal thing. Start momentum by putting a reminder in your calendar and then stick to that.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, especially with like fitness, I use that as an example all the time. It's like, I need to start running. Okay, but when's the first run?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think, and I've just finished Atomic Habits from a book point of view, and it talks about specifically, my girlfriend's driving mad because I keep using the word compounding, but it's the only word that matters at the moment, right? Which is that everything I'm doing is like, how can I compound? How can I small win? On the way here, I was reading my second book. I've started reading physical books rather than listening to them. For a long time, I listened to them. As a dyslexic, I was like, right, this year I'm going to read a book cover to cover. No excuses, going to do it. So I was like, right, let's get a book that I actually really want to read that I haven't read, that I know is actually quite good because it's got good reviews, and has been talked about in the self-improvement space for ages. So I was like, cool, let's start with Atomic Habits, see where I go. And then I went on to Mel's 5-second rule, which I knew about for a long time. Mel Robbins is a leading psychologist, for those who don't know, in Canada, and she's just launched a new book talking about they, them, and other people's opinions on us. It will be on my read list. But for me, the crux of the 5-second rule, for those who don't know, is you count down from 5 and then you move. Right? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. And what it will do is it will trigger your mind to do the action step. So if you're like, I need to start running. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go get changed, go on a run. Because we don't sit in that uncomfortable window long enough on average, right? I'm really embarrassed because I'm not good enough at health and I can only last 2 minutes of running. Okay. But then the next day do 2 minutes and 10. Next day do 2 minutes and 30, etc. And I think once we start building the compounding, right, is when the snowball effect will continue to roll. I mean, do you think is that what you've used to get to this point, do you think?
To a point, yeah. I mean, the Atomic Habits, my favourite quote from that is, every choice you make is a vote for the person you want to be. Yeah. And once you tie it to your identity in that way, there is a bit of a mental switch. And you start doing even the smallest things, right? You know, like the eating healthy or whatever, you make the healthier choice on a menu or that kind of thing. You justify it to yourself in a way that's personal, and in a way that you can then live by effectively. So that's definitely helped. And you know, there's a lot of things in that book. That book's brilliant. You know, so yeah, I think definitely. Obviously I've read it as well, and it's probably helped me. I've signed up to the newsletter. I get that as well, and I do think there's something to be said for being in that world of like the positive quotes and shifting your mindset around certain things. If you look at it enough, you just will start to think like it.
I think for me, I've been aware that like what I consume is how I'll show up, right? So like that's why I'm trying to build the habits from building off Atomic Habits, but in general, I'm trying to build the habits and build momentum. So like when I finished Atomic Habits, I was like, I've ordered another book, but it won't be here for 3 days. So I'm like, I need another one, because if I stop, then I won't do it. Then I broke the habit. And in the book, in Atomic Habits, they talk about streaking. And I'm the same with fitness, I'm the same with podcasts, I'm the same with everything. But for me, that's the key. So actually, I'm not like, my heart's not broken that my other book's not going to be here, because actually it's now planned in for when I finish Mel's, right? So actually I'm constantly like, and now to an extent, my travel plans, my thought process, etc., like how I use my downtime is actually trying to change. And like, actually I'm sleeping better because I'm reading before bed, like I'm reading on trains, etc. I'm like using my phone less, and I'm trying to, I guess sometimes I did an episode that I'm recording about a week ago talking about digital detox. And I for me, I've been notoriously known for like, because we work in media, so we're constantly on our phones and we're constantly, etc. And it's a tool, but I hadn't given myself that. And that's, I think, why I shifted into physical books as well, because I was aware that I was constantly on my phone. Do you think that's, like, from a psychology or your own well-being, or like as a freelancer, that can be your advantage? Like having those non-negotiables every day?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an interesting dichotomy, like you say, because when you're in the industry and when you're in a position where you can't not rely, but you're chasing views, but then you recognize that it's tough. It's tough mentally, or it can be tough mentally.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I think that is where a podcast comes in, particularly an audio one, because you don't have to be on your screen, and if it's got enough value, it's not just doom scrolling. It's one thing with detailed information that you go into, kind of like you're sort of talking about audiobooks is how we used to consume things. That's kind of what a podcast is.
Yeah.
Non-fiction, obviously. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's kind of the power of podcasts in a way. It can be, you can consume without being tied to a screen.
Yeah. I think also it's how you show up and the micro learning that you get from each one. Like, so for me, I'm not focused on how many books can I read a year, for example. I'm focused on, okay, how many pages can I weave in today? All right, today's quite busy. I'm traveling a bit. I've got loads of client delivery stuff to do, etc., etc. But it's like, actually, I've got this window of time, right? So actually, how many pages can I get in that window of time? Okay, cool.
Gamify it.
And then I'm also, to an extent, I'm rewiring the habits that I had. So previously when I would travel, I'd be constantly on my phone or constantly like listening to music or watching YouTube videos, which is not a bad thing as long as it's educational, sure. But for me, I'm curious to see where I'll be in like 3 to 6 months when I'm deliberately scheduling in time, whether it's travel or etc., to physically kind of disconnect from digitized stuff, especially as I live and breathe digital. And that's why I thought I'd mention it, because like for me, that's something I don't think we think about when we look at the podcast as well. Because I think what you'll find, and I'll be curious to see if we do an interview in a year about whether your money management skills is like compounded really, really hard because you're constantly talking about money, right? I found I'm becoming an infinitely better marketer because I'm constantly talking about marketing, right? So I notice little things like, hold on, I said that thing in the podcast, but I'm not doing it with my own content, right? So you mentioned hooks earlier. I'm not doing strong enough hooks on the ones I'm editing. Okay, how do we do that? How do we fix that? So now I'm focused more on how do I create a really strong captivating hook? That will probably grow into how do I create a micro trailer?
Yeah,
I expect as an editor, but also the knock-on effect for my clients will be they'll get a better product.
Yeah,
which in turn means I'll be able to charge more, which in turn means I'll have more money to either give myself a longer buffer or outsource to do other things and scale the business that way. Do you think, like, I don't want to specifically like steal in some ways a lot of your podcast, but if you could rate yourself on money management right now, where would you rate yourself? 10 being incredibly good, you know where every single pound's going. 1 being, I've got no idea what's in my bank account.
Yeah. There's a psychology fact about ask someone for a number between 1 and 10, everyone says 7. But that's kind of where I'm tempted to land on that, really. You know, I've been on my own journey with it, definitely. And, you know, I married an accountant, so that's helped me quite a lot. And, you know, just being in a relationship, she's super savvy. She's closer to the 10 mark than, you know, most people I know. But just being with her has helped me probably come up from a 5, frankly.
Okay. In
your 20s, you're in like a 3, you know, generally speaking. Yeah, there's a question that is going to be on the podcast, which is how often do you check your bank account every day? And in my 20s, it was as little as possible because I just didn't want to know. You push it away, right? You go...
Does that come from you were anxious about it?
100%. I was at university, but it's
Shit, how much money have I spent?
exactly, yeah. How much has gone on beer? I don't want to know. How much I spent last night? I don't want to know.
So I don't remember last night, but I remember there was a card involved. Shit.
Yeah,
Shit.
exactly. But once you sort of learn to look at it regularly, it empowers you. I've found empowers you because you go, okay, well actually I'm in control rather than just letting it all just slip and hope for the best. And if it's overdraft, it's overdraft. So I've kind of been on that journey, which is a small thing. I'm not trying to claim I've been on an epic money journey. Nothing dramatic's happened either way for me, but that one thing, kind of going back to the mindset thing, has helped massively. But again, you ask everyone. I'll ask you, how often do you check yours?
3 to 4 times a day.
Right, there we go.
Since I was in business.
Right.
For business, same as you.
Just hide away from
never fucking terrified of it, right?
That's it.
In business where I know I've got to pay for shit and I need to work out where that money's coming from all the time. And I'm doing a technique at the moment where I'll hide a significant amount. Whenever I get paid, I hide a significant amount of my money away into an account that happens to have 4.1% on it. Happy days.
Yeah.
But it's actually the point of I deliberately, yes, I'm doing well, but I deliberately live on a lot less.
Yeah.
And I deliberately keep, in regards to what I see every day when I check my bank account, a lot less because it allows me to keep pushing forward and keep thinking I need to find another way to invoice something or have more money coming in, A, but also B, when there is an emergency, I can go, I'm actually good.
Yeah.
You know, I can fix that problem.
Hidden account will fix.
Yeah, because so this is an example of how I use AI. AI is currently tracking for me the books I'm reading, what my takeaways are, how much am I showing up, what my fitness is, where my money is being allocated and how and why, and how well that's doing and how in line I am with the goals, how the podcast is doing, how many episodes I've filmed, how many episodes have gone out, what views are going on, what views are likely to happen in the future because it can extrapolate the data from, okay, you're here now and then in 6 months I think you'll be here. You're following the growth rate. So people, and I wanted to talk briefly and I'm aware of time, so I think we'll wrap up soon, but I wanted to talk a little bit about AI with you.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, people are either going to use it to be more efficient and have a lot of those things being monitored for them, as I mentioned, or they're going to sit on the moral of, I don't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because it's the world's over. Yeah. You know, and we're all going to lose our jobs. Do you think we're all going to lose our jobs?
Not necessarily, is what I'd say. I think it still has to come quite a long way because, and you know, people will reference the manual jobs of, you know, an AI won't fix your sink. Yeah. Maybe a robot with an AI brain could do one day. Mm-hmm. But actually, anything that involves a human at this point, largely, you need to be able to talk to someone about. Yeah. And you can have a conversation with AI, but it's slow, like, compared to talking to a human if you just want to get to the bottom of a problem. Because of the way LLMs work and how they're programmed, you can't get there quick enough. Yeah. You can't relate in the same way. You can't.
It also has a bias towards being positive as well. So if you want constructive criticism on something, it's not very good at that.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But I always use it. I've used the analogy recently of like you need to sharpen a knife to be able to cut something, right? Yeah. So you need to sharpen the AI, tell it what you want. And that's what I mean. When it comes to data analytics, which is everything I basically just discussed of how I use it, it's actually really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because all I'm getting it to do is do the thinking for me. Yeah. But I'm also aware that I may lose my cognitive ability. That's also why I shifted to reading physical books. Yeah. Because it keeps my cognitive ability high. Yeah. Right? So actually I've got the best of both worlds now. Because I'm building more time because I'm being more efficient to then utilize my brain more in tasks which are more challenging, you could say, to then be able to utilize AI better and the snowball effect goes that way. Yeah. You know? Do you think people are naturally scared of it because it's the new thing?
I think there's an element of that, yeah. But I think it's seeped into normality